Research ethics do not just concern research integrity, they also concern ethics towards participants. To understand the current thinking on ethics, it's important to be aware of some of the studies that led to the formation of the ethical guidelines that we use today. In the first half of the 20th century, several highly unethical studies were performed. When these studies were addressed in the popular media, outrage about the unethical nature of these studies led to the formation of a special committee. The committee's report, referred to as the Belmont report, formed the basis for our current ethical guidelines. I will discuss the study that gave direct rise to the Belmont report, referred to as the Tuskegee syphilis study, and I'll discuss a related study, the Guatemalan syphilis study. The aim of the Tuskegee study was to assess the natural progression, without treatment, of syphilis, a sexually transmitted infectious disease. Participants were 600 Black African-American men from Tuskegee, Alabama. 400 of the men had syphilis, 200 did not. Participants were offered health care for minor illnesses, free meals on examination days, and free burials if they consented to being autopsied. Participants were given medical treatment for bad blood, a local term for different illnesses. But the treatments weren't treatments at all. They actually consisted of spinal taps performed without anesthetics. The 400 syphilis patients were never told that they had syphilis. The study started in 1932, when a treatment for syphilis was still being sought. The study consisted of periodic measurements performed over a period of 40 years. Halfway through the 1940s, around the end of the Second World War, it had become clear that penicillin was an effective treatment for syphilis. And at the start of the 1950s, penicillin was widely accepted as the preferred treatment. But until the end of the study in 1972, none of the participants were informed of this fact, and no actual treatment was ever provided. Participants that were diagnosed with syphilis elsewhere were actively denied treatment or lied to and treated with placebos. A large number of participants directly or indirectly died from syphilis. Many infected their spouses. Several children were contaminated in the womb and were born with the disease. Now, the Tuskegee study was not secret or performed illicitly. The study was performed by the U.S. Public Health Service. It involved many different researchers who periodically reported procedures and results in scientific medical journals. Of course, it's obvious that the Tuskegee study is extremely unethical. Participants were lied to and seriously and unnecessarily harmed. They were a vulnerable group consisting of poor, often illiterate people facing difficult economic times. These vulnerabilities were exploited in a horrific fashion. But if you think this is the most horrendous study ever performed in peacetime, you would be wrong. Just after the Second World War, the U.S. Public Health Service performed a study in Guatemala. With the cooperation of Guatemalan health services officials, they actively infected people with syphilis and gonorrhea without their consent and without treatment. Subjects were prisoners, soldiers, and mental patients coerced into participating. It seems researchers were fully aware of the unethical nature of this experiment. They knew the study would not be accepted in the U.S. Also, at the time of the study, the trials at Nuremberg were taking place. These trials concerned the experiments performed by the Nazis in concentration camps and could not have escaped the researchers' attention.